the total parenteral nutrition, TPN, is a long and complex one in which Dr. Dudrick played the lead role at every step, including fundamental insights into metabolism and nutritional needs of critically ill patients. Numerous innovations in the technology of intravenous feeding, including development of complete life-supporting formulations of nutrients, first for laboratory animals and then for pediatric and adult human patients, special plastic feeding bags, tubing, pumps, central venous catheters, and long-term catheterization techniques, and major advances in the approach to asepsis and antisepsis from the filtered laminar airflow formulations in the pharmacy to operating or treatment room to the bedside and ultimately to long-term home care. This remarkable odyssey of discovery could only have been possible through the commitment of a medical scientist of great intellectual capacity, energy, vision, and courage. It required not only scientific, I heard stubbornness, skill, and absolute persistent dedication, but also the ability to galvanize multidisciplinary healthcare teams and engage in partnerships with the pharmaceutical and biotechnological industries and with federal government regulatory and funding agencies. Since its development beginning in the early 1960s, TPN has transformed the care of patients with cancer, gastrointestinal diseases, intestinal failure, short gut syndrome, trauma, burns, sepsis, and a wide range of critical illnesses, has made possible altogether the field of intestinal transplantation and has had a transformative effect on the survival of critically ill infants that is difficult to overstate. The number of lives of infants and children that have been saved using TPN since 1970 through 2010 has been estimated at over 10 million, and the benefit to adults with a range of conditions is no less substantial. TPN is a life-saving mainstay of therapy for a great portion of most critically ill patients in hospitals worldwide and amounts to one of the 4 most significant developments in the history of surgery and one of the most significant contributions to surgery during the 20th century, together with heart surgery and organ transplantation. That is why I think it is fitting that our board named the library after Dr. Stanley Dudrick. Throughout his career, up to and including today, Stan has served as inspirational and selfless teacher, scientist, and mentor. At an age when many would have long ago retired, Stan continues to work with energy to inspire yet another generation of physicians. In addition to that, now that our library has been dedicated to Dr. Dudrick, students in our district will also be inspired by his creativity and innovative successes that he has had throughout his life. I just wanted to share one personal story. As my administrative assistant and I were getting ready yesterday for the dedication of the library, I had spoken to a few students who were congregated. They were closing down, shutting down their computers. Mrs. Prey was there, and they were in awe that a person from Nanticoke can do the types of things that Dr. Dudrick has done. And our hope is that this library will inspire future generations of students who graduate from our school district to do the same and to do similar work that Dr. Dudrick has done. And yes, you can do those types of things from a small town like Nanticoke, Pennsylvania. At this time, I want to introduce our man of the hour, Dr. Stanley Dudrick.
You have the podium.
Wow. Well, I couldn't believe it when I heard that this was going to happen. I couldn't imagine what I had done that would deserve that kind of recognition, but I really am much appreciative of it. And I can't thank you and the school board and the teachers and other administrators and the students themselves for this signal honor. I think when we go back to school, you always want to find out what the common denominator is. Remember that? And I think the common denominator to where I've been and where I am now was what I learned at Nanticoke High School and in Nanticoke, and what was imbued into me by the good people who live here. Relatives, of course, friends, neighbors. Sometimes they were almost indistinguishable, you know. If I did something, I didn't have to wait to get home to get a spanking. They'd spank me along the way. And that's the way it was. You know, they all took care of us. And I can truly say I enjoyed growing up in Nanticoke so much. And when I didn't think much about it on the way. You know, you just enjoyed what you did. You went hiking, you went with the Boy Scouts, you played in the band, you played in every kind of sport and excelled in most of them. Nanticoke was always at the top or near the top of every championship or league play, and we had such great coaches and inspiring teachers, and actually we inspired each other. It was kind of a feeling of, you don't talk about losing, you just talk about winning, and you play the best you can and as hard as you can, and that was the way it was done. And I see you know, people like Tony Dixa. I see his son is here, and Tony Dixa was one of our coaches and teachers, but he was a captain in the Second World War, and I think he was captain in the OSS, you know, which preceded the CIA, and you know, he had a lot of things he did that nobody in Nanticoke ever knew what he did, but I heard about them, and I got to know people later on in that branch of our government, and they knew who Tony Dixa was. And he was a no-nonsense hero that never talked much about it. And as a coach, for example, he just wouldn't accept anything but your best. If it wasn't the absolute best, you're going to get your butt beat. God bless you. And that was kind of the way we grew up. You would have been ashamed not to do your best. And we helped each other and hung together. We were always on the lower end of not only Wyoming Valley, but of the socioeconomic scale. You know, all the people at Myers and GAR and 44 and Coughlin and Wyoming Seminary and Kingston, did I say? They all had these great schools, and they had the nicest uniforms. They got new uniforms and new equipment every year. Not Nanticoke. You know. I remember playing for Ed Kulagusky when I was in 8th grade and 1st year high. We had leather helmets. Leather helmets. And it was, but we had Ed Kulagusky. So, you know, you could have played naked for him and you'd win. He just was that kind of a person, and a great science teacher too. I'm grateful to him because he imbued me with an excitement for science, not just introduced me to it. He stimulated me, so I just loved it. I would stay after class finished when I could and just chat with him, and he would stimulate me, and did the same thing on the baseball diamond and on the football field. And it was a kind of spirit that never goes away. And I guess on that lower end of the socioeconomic scale, you know, Plymouth and Nanticoke and Newport were at the bottom of the heap, socioeconomically and prestige-wise. And then Plymouth was a little bit above us, and by the time you got to Kingston, you were in tall cotton, as we used to say, in Houston. And But you had some great things even there. A little story. Kingston, we loved to beat them because they were the rich kids and we were the poor kids. And we didn't talk much about it, but that's what motivated us. And but I remember they got lights. They were the first high school that we played a night football game. Kingston High School got a stadium with lights. We thought, oh my God. And we went to play them, and it was a terrible day. Mud, cold, sleet, and it was awful. And they were beating us at halftime by a touchdown or two. And we were completely muddy so that there was nothing you could see on any of the uniforms. And any people you didn't know one from the other, all mud. And we take halftime off, and Kingston goes into their locker room. We go into our locker room, and we're shivering, and we're only there for 10 or 15 minutes. We had to go back on the field and discouraged. And then we get out there, and there's Kingston. They all put on another set of uniforms. So out there in these beautiful white uniforms with I can remember yellow letters on them, and there we were in mud. And that was the final straw. You just kind of wanted to lie down and die. And the coach could see that, and so could their coach. And the coach called timeout held the game up second half. Got together with our coaches and the officials. We know what they're talking about. Before you know it, we got our orders to go back into the locker room. And what had happened is Kingston offered us a set of their uniforms if we didn't mind playing the second half in one of their uniforms of a different color. And man, we'd have played in diapers just to get something dry on. And came back out, and to show our gratitude to them for their generosity, we beat them. And but they were such good sports, and they helped beat themselves by helping us get warm and dry and cheering us up, and that's kind of the philosophy or the background of Wyoming Valley that we grew up in. And you can't buy that. You can't buy that. I remember when I went to college at Franklin and Marshall, I originally was going to go to King's or Wilkes or Scranton or one of the schools up here. Actually, Princeton wanted me to come there. I was a little afraid of that. And I didn't want to go to Penn because I knew that I wanted to go there for medical school, and I didn't want to be there too long. But somebody talked me into going to look at F&M. I never heard of it. They didn't have a football team worth a damn. And small school, I fell in love with it. And I fell in love with the area. And I spent probably the best 4 years of my life there. But I became transformed for a kid from Nanticoke with good values, and that was the most important thing, and a supportive family and supportive friends, and went to F&M figuring I'm not going to even make it out of here. I'll tell you a little story. I did not unpack my bags when I got to F&M for 3 weeks. I lived out of my suitcases because I thought, why unpack? I'm going to be out of here. First round of tests and I'll be kicked out. Well, first round of tests, I think I got A's in every test. And it was amazing because I had worked hard. They were partying and doing this and that. I had no money to party. I didn't have white bucks and khakis. I had dungarees and clodhoppers. and people would make fun of me for being from Nanticoke, or they'd call me coal cracker or coal region guy. And 80% of my class were prep school, mostly from New England. And they made fun of me and say, what's Nanticoke? Is that a disease? Where is that? Is that in America? And it used to hurt my feelings at first. But what a motivator it was. I just sucked it up. And I said, we'll see you in the classroom. And by the end of that first year, I was elected class president, and I was straight A my first year, and it was all, after that, it was kind of easy. But it was mainly the good start that I got here. Thank you, and the board, and your teachers. I can remember all the wonderful things that that they taught me, you know, Hank Lehman and chemistry, and Yastrzemski and physics, and Tabby Willis in biology, Namizhniak and Jones in mathematics, and Sybil Williams and Mary Liz Humphrey in Latin. She wasn't one of my favorites, and that wasn't one of hers, but we got along. And I remember one time she threw an eraser at me. While she was at the board, I was talking, and wham, right. Boy, we gotta sign her up for the baseball team. She whacked me right in the head with the eraser. And but it was they just taught you things that you never forgot. And then we had some great, and George Sheeter and Alice Gorka-Pavlovsky and I can relate to that. George Sheeter, we called him professor. He was a professor, I think, from Austria, and he was the head of the music department. And he was quite the guy. We played for him in the orchestra and the band. Alice was a brilliant piano player, and she played in the orchestra every day. And then when he retired, I guess we had still 2 years to go, I think Alice wasn't. And Frank Majewski Jr., I think, became our leader, and he got an illness shortly after he started with us. And he asked me if I would be the assistant band and orchestra leader. And okay, I'll give it a try, but I really enjoyed it. And we had Alice to anchor us in the orchestra, and we had a great band, and we put on musical shows. I'm not sure if Ron Cross got a start there, but where's Ron? I saw him. Oh, there he is. Ron eventually went off and became a Broadway star for 30 years from Nanticoke, you know. And how many knew that before tonight, or, you know, just a couple? But here, I think people from Nanticoke don't run around waving flags saying, hey, hey, look at me, or I'm number one. You know, if you would have put your finger up in the end zone, or if you didn't hand the ball to the referee, you'd get benched. There was no mouthing or gesturing or jiggling your butt, doing all the crazy things these guys do today. It was real business, and the band was terrific. Sheeter was a perfectionist. Alice could play anything. You hum 3 or 4 notes, and she'd play the whole rest of the music, the whole rest of the song. And I was always enamored with her because she had such talent. And then in the Gorka family, they had an artist and another academic, and her sister Doris was one of the first female doctors from this area. She might have been the first, Alice, I don't know. Was she the first? The first Nanticoke gal who became a physician. And not only that, she became a nationally recognized endocrinologist, a professor at Women's Medical, and then at Penn. She became an assistant or associate dean. She might have become the dean at Women's Medical, then I think she became an associate dean at Penn. And she married Pete. Is that Pete Portiska? Tony. Tony was the older brother. Pete was, he was about a year ahead of us. But Tony was a commander in the Navy, as I recall, Annapolis grad, Nanticoke born. And you know, we have so many people like that from Nanticoke that we don't know about. And when people talk to me about Nanticoke, they say, what do they do at Nanticoke? You know, what's Nanticoke famous for? I said, well, we used to have the highest quality anthracite coal in the United States. We had the hardest hard coal, purest hard coal, the cleanest burning hard coal of any vein of anthracite or hard coal in the United States. It's all mined out now, and everybody wanted it. Well, of course, it's all gone now, and with it went our economy. But I'd say, well, we used to be famous for hard coal. Well, I said the hard coal mines kind of got used up. I said the Second World War massacred about a third of our young people. And I'll never forget when I was a kid, walking to school, walking up the whole length of Union Street, West Union, now Dudrick Way, I think. and I'd look in the windows, they'd have this little American flag replica, not a flag, but red, white, and blue. It was actually a pentagon, actually, in a way. And a blue star meant had somebody in the family in the service. A silver star meant they got injured or wounded. Gold star meant they got killed. And we'd go to school and walk up and down, that mile to school and look at the stars and see what was happening to our folk. And an awful lot of our young men either were injured or killed in that war, or they left this area to work in New England making tanks and guns and planes and ammunition, and then didn't come back because they met people there or had better jobs than you could have in Nanticoke. The dress and garment industry kind of saved us, because on every large home in every other block in town there was a little dress shop, and they'd have sewing machines, and the women in town would take over and raise the money for the family. The guys were either in the service or they were killed or they were making things for the war effort. And then when that was all over, we didn't have much left here in town, and we've been scrambling since then, but thank God we now have Luzerne County Community College, one of the best community college in northeastern Pennsylvania. We should be proud of that. And we have the culinary school, which is probably the only culinary school of its quality in this area, and I'm hoping that in the future we'll be able to attract more kids back here. I'm getting ahead of myself, but one of the reasons I came back 5 or 6 years ago, I came to Misericordia, where they started a physician assistant program. And some of our faculty are right here. The Dean of Health Sciences and Education is here with her husband, and Jack Goebel is here. He's our program director. And Lindsay is here. She's an Nanticoke gal. She's the head of our clinical arm of the BA program. And so we now have things here that we didn't have before. And we're hoping that the new medical school will keep people here so that they don't all go out. Because when people ask me, what does Nanticoke do now? I said, we raise some of the best young people in the country, and we export them. They go away to school. They're so well prepared. They do well in school. And then they're attracted either to professional schools or graduate schools or to industry or government. And they don't come home because they don't have something here that they could get out there. And so every year we lose a significant portion of our most precious product, our youth. And we've got to do something to keep them here and bring them back. And educational institutions will do that. That's why I'm so proud of that library. You might not have done it for that reason. But for me, that's the most important thing. If we can get the kids used to going into the library and enjoying it and getting used to the satisfaction that you get from discovery and creativity, and to learn what other people have done. And it opens up a whole world that you don't know about. But a library can transform you from Nanticoke to the world. And you know, you can get some of it from computers, but it's different. A computer's different from a book. A computer's different. You don't get a librarian with a computer. In a good library, you usually have a good librarian. And they can help you find out what to learn, how to learn, where to learn it, where to get it from, and imbue you with a love for learning, a love for education, a love for excellence. And that, once you achieve excellence, it doesn't matter where you came from. There'll be a market for you. And so when people ask me about Nanticoke, I say we've produced some of the greatest people in the country. And you don't know it, but they'll do anything to succeed and do it well. I got to, you know, we just moved, by the way, from Connecticut to New Hampshire. We've had a summer place up there for 50 years, but now it's, now we have a residence there. And I remember going up to the Mount Washington Hotel, which is one of the most glorious hotels, you know, right at the base of Mount Washington, the tallest mountain in northeastern United States. And finding out that that's where the IMF was carved out at the end of the Second World War. They brought Roosevelt, or before the end of the war, I guess Truman and Roosevelt and de Gaulle and Stalin and Churchill. They all met secretly up there, and they developed, they carved up the world. And then when the war ended the next year, they already had things in place. But it was done up there in New Hampshire, at Mount Washington, and that place is still there, and it's a glorious old hotel. And the guy who built it, his name was John Stickney. How many here have ever heard of the name Stickney? It's on a hose house down here. Hose, you know, Stickney Hose House, which is where the fire trucks are. That's John Stickney. He was a man who became a coal baron here, acquired the land and the rights for the minerals, and began a coal company, and then he began the Susquehanna Coal Company, two Susquehanna Coal Companies, I think, and built this place up in New Hampshire for his wife. And it is a glorious grand old hotel. It's all been refurbished, and put it on your to-do list, you know, put it on your bucket list. Go up there to Mount Washington and get on that porch and sit on those rockers and look at Mount Washington, and man, it's a great feeling. It's a guy from my hometown did this. And there's a pride that, you know, and I tell people, you know, I ask them who built Mount Washington Hotel, and I tell them about John Stickney. They're in awe, and that I would even have heard of him. But it's nice to have things like that to make you a good feeling, and to feel pride in your background and where you came from and who you grew up with. Because whether we like it or not, all of you are part of me. I am the sum total, the algebraic sum of all of you and your forebears and your relatives. They all have something to do with developing my values, my character, if I have any, my ambition, my determination. My stubbornness is probably, you know, genetic Pollock. You need to be stubborn, and you need to be courageous. Aristotle said, of all the virtues in humanity, the primary virtue is courage. Because if you don't have courage, you'll never be able to manifest any or all of your other virtues completely. You know, you might be a great athlete, but if you don't have the guts to show people that, if you don't have the guts to put that ball under your arm and go through the line and believe you can get through it, that takes courage. It takes talent. You can have all the talent in the world if you don't have the courage to express it. You're going to be on the bench. And it's the same thing in life. You'll be sitting on a bench in life instead of being out there leading. And Nanticoke has all of the elements you need to excel. I can just tell you that. And many of you in the room have proven that. And I just hope and pray that our future is sound, and that the young people I've met, starting with Dr. Rivera, and the school board members, and the principal, and some of the teachers, you know, the elements are here. All we have to do is, you know, it's like planting a seed. You don't know what's going to happen when you put that seed in the ground, but boy, it can become pretty glorious sometime. And I'm living for the day that everybody will want to go to Misericordia and then to Geisinger Commonwealth Medical School, and rather than Princeton and Penn, or Yale and Harvard and Stanford. We'll want them to go there too, because they need all the help they can get. But it would be nice to achieve that kind of greatness, and we are capable of doing it. And we have to imbue that in our kids, that you can do it. And they would be my father called them beatniks. Remember that back in the 50s and 60s, beatnik was a word, and he said a beatnik is somebody who thinks they can't make it. He said they're already beat before they start. And you can't be a beatnik if you want to win. And that's important. And you have to really believe in yourself, believe in your parents, believe in the values they imbued in you, believe in what your teachers did, and do it. And just do it. And I can't express to all of you how appreciative I am of every one of you and your relatives, friends, and neighbors in this wonderful town. You may not think it's wonderful, but I do. And every place I go, I tell people within the first couple sentences, I'm from Nanticoke, Pennsylvania. And when I first started saying that, they'd all look at me kind of funny, where's that and all that. So I would tell them. They don't ask anymore. They know where Nanticoke is. In the medical profession, people know where Nanticoke is. Oh, is that where Doris Gurka-Bartuska came from? Oh, Dudrick, is that where you and your relatives grew up? Yeah, and a lot of others too. And we have to nurture that. And we have to be mentors to our kids. And as I said, imbue them with a spirit of excellence and success. And I tell them, I don't play to win, to lose. I don't play for fun. I don't play to tie. I play to win. And if I don't play to win every time, even though I play to win every time, I lose now and then. But if you don't try to play to win right from the start, you're going to lose a lot more. And you've got to be able to work on that and develop it. And we're very grateful to what you do here, Dr. Rivera. And I'm so pleased to see a handsome, bright young man being the superintendent of schools. You know, God bless Joe Siesko, but you know, he was a lot of things, but he wasn't handsome. But he was a great guy, you know. Just to show you, I owe a lot to Joe Siesko. He was a superintendent, and I was on the borderline. I was born April 9th. If you were born after April, you had to wait for the next year. And if you were born before April, you could start school. And I remember my parents meeting with Joe Siesko, and they took me, and I was scared to death. They come to meet the superintendent of schools to ask whether I should start school in first grade when I was 5, or should I wait till I'm 6? And he gave them great advice. He said, you know, wait till 6. He'll be a year or more mature. Above the neck, he'll be a year more mature physically. He'll have better reflexes, muscular coordination. He won't be the shrimp on the football team. He'll be the biggest guy on the football team. or the basketball team or whatever. And I wanted to go to school. I was angry with my parents. I can remember pouting and being a snot. And that was the best advice. He said, someday you'll thank me, and I did. I did. He did me a great service, because I was always kind of on the upper end of the class, physically, mentally, cognitively, I think, because I had that extra 11 or 10 months on the one on the bottom of the class. And it was, these are the kinds of things you get from a faculty or from administration that gives a damn about you. Okay, it's time for me to quit. Okay, that's my little sister. I mean, God put her on earth to give me humility. She hasn't succeeded very well, but she keeps trying. Thank you very much again for being here. I love you all. Completely honest.
I promise this will be the last time that we move this evening. We're going to move over for dinner in the cafeteria right next to us. Thank you.